ICH E6R3, when we look at this document, we know that good clinical practice are scientific and ethical standards for how we conduct human participant research. And that is interesting because that is a change in terminology that we see in this update, moving away from subjects to participants. But this update that is still in draft form, and so we're all just kind of working with what came out in May of 2023 in terms of our expectations for what it's going to look like, really takes the elements of the updates we saw in ICH E8, so R1, revision 1 for ICH E8, which are those general considerations for clinical trials. And all of that looked at critical to quality factors and making sure that we are assessing feasibility and of our study and making sure that we are putting a plan in place so that that study can be conducted in compliance so that we meet our goal of good clinical practice of getting good data from protected individuals. So this is that top-down quality culture and being proactive in how we address these needs. So I am an auditor and a trainer, and I certainly am grateful for this approach, and I certainly hope that we get to see this applied. So as I mentioned earlier, I am an auditor and a trainer, and I've had an opportunity to work both domestically here in the United States and then outside the U.S. as well, working in pharmaceuticals, biologics, and medical devices, as well as cosmetics and some other things. So what is interesting to me, every time I see these things come up, that we are, from an industry perspective and globally, right? ICH is kind of that global passport to data. We are taking that information and working towards building quality into everything we do, which is very refreshing. So we're going to look at the revised structure and purpose of ICH E6 R3 draft. We'll look at changes in the principles of GCP, condensing those from 13 to that 11, but really merging those and fleshing them out a little bit more. Look at updates to the glossary, just some high level, picking some information, changes to definitions, and some additional definitions as we expand the scope of ICH E6 R3. Look at the impact of modifications on core requirements, roles, and responsibilities for each of us, sponsors, ethics committees, and our investigators. We'll look at clarifications for the investigator brochure and protocols, and that information is going to be more in terms of content and reporting. We'll look at new guidance for data governance and essential records. So these are two parts rather that have been added and expanded to reflect what we're seeing in our regulated industry. And we'll look at the complementary elements of ICH E8, those general considerations for clinical studies, for looking at identification and management of study quality risks. So good clinical practice, as you know, scientific and ethical international standards for how best to approach a human participant population with an investigational regulated product and make sure that we meet that goal of getting credible safety and efficacy data from a population who was also protected. And that in turn protects the public's health, which is really what we're trying to do as we work on these products. Get products out there that are safe and effective for others. So following these basic principles of good clinical practice allows that data to be accepted throughout the world in many different countries so that we don't have to repeat that study, so we can move forward with getting that product out there to help people.